Greetings, everyone. This is Jeff Wilkerson, Professor of Physics at Luther College, bringing you the next in our series of what to look for in the night sky. We're talking about the week of July 1st, 2024 this time around. It's a good moon week. It's going to be dark skies ahead of us. So let's start with that. The moon on the morning of the 2nd will rise at about 2:15 to 2:30 in the morning, and it is very near the Pleiades star cluster. We talked about the Pleiades last week and thinking about how we think of that as a fall-winter type of constellation. So here, as we turn the calendar from June to July, being able to see the Pleiades in the morning sky reminds us it's a beautiful open star cluster, naked eye visible, looks like a little scoop, the 7 stars there. The moon's going to be 15% full, so a very, very spectacular thin crescent right next to the Pleiades, about 3 to 4 degrees south of the Pleiades. And so anytime you get out before sunrise on the morning of the 2nd, you'll see the moon pretty near the Pleiades. It's going to be great. The next day, the moon will have waned away to about half as full, 7 or 8% full. So this is a spectacular crescent moon. You can't see it much less full than this. It gets harder and harder. You can, but it gets harder and harder and harder to see as it gets to be thinner and thinner and thinner. And it's going to be north of Jupiter that next day, a little bit further from Jupiter than it was from the Pleiades. It'll be about 4 to 5 degrees. Both these objects, Jupiter, nice bright planet, the moon, it's the moon, right? And so both of these objects hold up pretty well to the coming sunrise, to the dawn as it appears. But this area rises 45 minutes later than it did the day before. So we're talking about 3:15. You get out at 3:45, and it should be pretty good shape to be able to see this. Now, it gets light really early, and so you're going to start getting some washout from the morning sky, and it's going to depend a little bit on your local situation, the best time to observe this is. But sometime before sunrise on the morning of the 3rd, you'll see a beautiful crescent moon paired with Jupiter. Go ahead and check it out. I think it's going to be great. Back there the day before, if you had an object this week that you wanted to try to take a picture of, with your cell phone even, I think trying to get the moon with the Pleiades is going to be something that would be worth trying to do. If you've got a camera you could set up on a tripod, so much the better. But just with your cell phone, give this a try. This is a beautiful, beautiful sort of waning crescent moon with a couple of interesting objects, the Pleiades star cluster and Jupiter. Now, also in the morning sky, we got Saturn. Saturn rises about midnight now, more or less. So it's up all morning. Once you get past midnight, it's up. And that's most of the night because it doesn't get dark, for me at least. It's not getting dark until 10 o'clock or so to really be able to see things. And so we've been watching Saturn next to Phi Aquarii, this 4.2 magnitude star. So 4.2 magnitude star, it's a star that you can see without any optical aid. It's not super bright, but you should be able to see it if you've got reasonably dark skies. And we've been seeing Saturn, planets. We talk about planets when they're in their typical motion, that's prograde motion. They're moving easterly against the background stars. That's this direction. And so Saturn has been opening up distance against Phi Aquarii. That's all coming to an end. As we catch up and pass Saturn, we start to see Saturn move in retrograde motion, backward motion against the background stars. So it's going to start turning around and moving toward Phi Aquarii and dipping across. So all week long, Saturn doesn't really appear to move. It stays about 2.1 degrees away from Phi Aquarii. So go ahead, get that locked in your mind. Go out and observe Saturn just after midnight or any time after midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and see where it is relative to Phi Aquarii. And as it starts retrograde motion, it slows and slows and slows and slows, and then turns around and goes the other direction. So it's not going to be moving very much over the next week or two, but you keep watching that, and then the next thing you know, it's going to be underneath. It's going to slide to the south of Phi Aquarii and back this direction. So it's something for us to watch. And then before you know it, given the way life rolls forward, it's going to turn around and go back into prograde motion. So this is going to be fun to watch for the rest of the summer. Let's just start this week and go out and check it out. Now, in the evening sky, let's take advantage of the lack of moonlight washing things out, and let's enjoy a little bit of Sagittarius. We look at Sagittarius a lot this time of year. this region of the sky rises about 10 o'clock. And as I just said a moment ago, that's for me, that's when it's getting dark. Right? It's getting dark enough to observe stuff starting sometime around 10 o'clock. So this is about as good as it gets for observing Sagittarius. And it's going to be as high in the sky as it gets. Sagittarius is pretty far south from me, as far north as I am here in Iowa, in the middle of the United States. And so I have to look pretty far to the southern horizon. It gets washed out a little bit. Sagittarius looks like a teapot. So that's your first task. If you're not familiar with Sagittarius, go see if you can find a teapot looking to the southeast as it gets dark. So you're looking east of south, coming up over the horizon. You got the big sweep of the scorpion's tail, and Sagittarius is the teapot that sits above there. You got the body of the teapot, you've got the spout, you've got the lid, and you've got the handle. The tip of the lid, Caus Borealis, is that star. And you can start there, and you can move about 5.5 degrees up to the northwest, and you come to two beautiful nebulae. A nebula is a fuzzy patch. It means we don't see any stars in it necessarily. And so it's a glowing patch in the sky, something that we see bright against the background unless it's unless it's an absorption nebula. And we'll talk about that in a second. So M8 is the Lagoon, and M20 is the Trifid Nebula. And these have examples. So there are a couple, let's talk about, there might be more, but let's talk about three kinds of nebulae. You've got an emission nebula that is emitting its own light. And you've got a reflection nebula that's reflecting starlight, light from a star that's nearby. And you've got these absorption nebulae that are absorbing. They're dark clouds of cold molecular gas or dust absorbing starlight. So let's actually go to the Trifid first. The Trifid is sort of a prototypical, it's just when you say nebula, if you just ask your computer to show you a nebula, you might very well get the Trifid. The Trifid, you've probably seen pictures of it. It's got these lobes with dark lanes in between there. Those dark lanes are absorption nebula. These bright lobes are emission nebula. And then there's a whole region up here that's a reflection nebula, where it's reflected. So there's brand new hot stars, young stars, very massive stars that are glowing in bright blue and ultraviolet light, and that's stripping the electrons off the hydrogen in here, and the electrons are recombining with the hydrogen, and sometimes they recombine in the n=2 state and drop down to the n=1 state, and so you get all of this light that's emitted from all of these processes. That's the emission. But there's this dark absorbing gas and dust in there, so you get these dark lanes. And then you've got a region up here that's just reflecting light from those nearby stars. This is a beautiful object. You can see it in a pair of binoculars. You take your binoculars and scan from the Sagittarius, from the teapot of Sagittarius, scan to the northwest, and you'll see both of these nebulae growing right there. If you have a small telescope, if you've got a backyard telescope, say a decent sized one, let's say you've got an 8-inch diameter backyard telescope, that's going to be impressive for you. That's worth your time this summer to go out and check out the Trifid and see it repeatedly a few times. You can see the structure. You can see the sort of rose shape, the petals and the dark lanes that you see across there. Maybe that's not a rose. Maybe that's a petunia. Anyway, a flower shape. Let's say that. Let's not get down the rabbit hole of botany. And say we've got these dark lanes in there, darker regions and brighter regions that you can see in there. A lot of color in a picture, but again, you don't see color with your eyes very well. The rods on the sides of your eyes aren't color sensitive, and you got to use those to see these faint objects. When faint objects look up, it just still be very impressive in a small telescope. The Lagoon, just south of there, is mostly at least emission nebula, where you've got electrons being stripped off of hydrogen again and other atoms. And recombining there and emitting. And the Lagoon, if it weren't for the Trifid sitting right there, the Lagoon would be a remarkable and beautiful object for you to go out and see. And it is. It really is. It's worth your time to study both of these objects. Make some sketches of them if you have a telescope and can see what you can see in there. But hop from one to the other and look at them. But the Trifid is really a spectacular object and really worth checking out. So see if you can, at 10 o'clock it's rising, by midnight, by 11 o'clock or midnight, it's well up into the sky where you can see it. Find the teapot asterism of Sagittarius, practice finding those stars, and then use your binoculars to hop northwest. And then once you've done that, if you've got a telescope, go and check these things out in the telescope. Don't forget the waning crescent moon in the beginning of the week. It's going to be spectacular. And so that's what we got for you this week. Should be a good week. I hope you have a great week ahead. I hope you have some dark skies. And as always, thanks for watching, everybody.